Hey, welcome to your Leo horoscopes for the week of December 3rd through the 9th. We're in our first official full week of December. We are also officially entering the shadow period of the last Mercury retrograde of the year. We enter that shadow period on Wednesday the 6th, which is 7 days before the actual retrograde starts next week on Wednesday the 13th. Yay! The retrograde does start in Capricorn, but it ends in Sagittarius, kicking off the next year, 2024, of Mercury retrogrades being in fire signs. So we will have a Leo Mercury retrograde next year, which is not fun to think about. It's true, but it is happening. So we must prepare for it. We do have the moon in your sign for the very first day of the week. As we ended the week with the moon in your sign, we are kicking it off for just a few hours, really, actually, on Sunday. I wouldn't even say that it's in there all day. Pretty much out and away from the cusp by the end of the day, honestly. But the beginnings of it are going to be a bit challenging, I do have to say, because as the moon leaves your sign, it leaves your sign in a T-square, really, with Saturn, which is in opposition of the moon, and Uranus, which is squared with the moon. So here's the challenge, really. First of all, the moon is focused on your day-to-day schedule, and any kind of emotional stuff that comes in and disrupts your day-to-day schedule, always frustrating, always frustrating. I hate that. I'll be trucking along, doing what I got to do, and somebody calls me, tells me something emotionally destructive, and I just cannot seem to focus on what I'm doing. It's so annoying when that happens, especially if you got a really good flow going. Saturn is focused on self, but moving into really showcasing and really pointing towards your responsibility to your own emotional health as it's moving into focus on inner trauma, while Uranus continues to be focused on the mind. Now, it seems like a really big challenge, but let's actually break it down and look at it for what it is. Anytime you go through something quote unquote emotional, it takes you down the rabbit hole. It throws you in the tornado, and you're just sort of stuck in the tornado, running around and around and around. You get in the hamster wheel and you can't seem to get out of the hamster wheel. And a lot of that is driven by your thought process, because your mind keeps bringing it up. And every time your mind brings it up, you have an emotional experience with it. And then the whole process happens all over again. So, two things here. One, the first thing is that if you're holding on to too much of this anger and hatred towards these people, you want to work on that. Okay. Now, this is something that a lot of people have very mixed feelings about this statement. And the statement is that you forgive people for you. You don't forgive them for them. Now, a lot of people, while they understand that and they respect that, also will say the person doesn't deserve forgiveness, and therefore it's really hard for me to forgive them, which I also understand, right? So bottom line here is that forgiveness is not about allowing people to continue to with toxic behavior. Forgiveness is not a get out of jail free card either. Forgiveness is acceptance. It's saying, yes, this happened. This is the relationship that I have with this person. I can't change it. The only thing that I can do is accept that it is what it is, but not put myself in a position to be taken advantage of by it simply because it is what it is, right? So it is all about boundaries, really. That's one way of looking at it. The other has everything to do with your brain and what you're doing to put boundaries on your brain, because we're wired to constantly focus on the negative. And it's not just we're wired because we're human beings, but society in general, for thousands of years, has always been geared towards this fear-based mindset or this anger-based mindset, all of which gets in the way of you living your best life. So Uranus is really influencing this by basically saying, look, yes, it's going to come up in your mind, but you don't have to focus on it. Okay. Your mind's going to do what it's going to do, but you don't have to keep it going. You don't have to allow that to be your main focus of your life. You can say, no, I don't want to think about that right now, and change your focus, shift your focus to something else. That is completely in your control. No, it's not easy. The more you practice, the easier it gets. The moon is in a grand sextile with Venus and Mercury, which is a more helpful aspect than all the other stuff that's going on, which is good. Mercury's focus is on career. Venus's focus is on money. Again, the moon is really, we're really looking at maximizing our time on our day-to-day schedule. So this, it's almost like it gives you another option. Look, you could focus on your trauma and make you crazy all day long thinking about it, or you could be productive and make some money. And chances are you're going to feel better if you're productive and make some money, as opposed to allowing your trauma to take over another day. So I kind of look at it in this way. I also have dealt with a lot of trauma in my life, and I'm not going to lie, there are situations that come up all the time that throw me for a loop, and it's really hard for me to focus outside of that while I'm working through the problem. And that's okay. As long as I work through the problem, eventually the problem goes away because I have worked through the problem. If I'm not working through the problem, or I'm trying to race through and shortcut it, which I do tend to do from time to time, then the problem does not go away. And I keep having to repeat the pattern as it keeps annoyingly coming up over and over and over again. As we get into Monday, the moon is out of there. There is nothing left to influence what you're doing necessarily. Sunday can be a power day if you choose it to be. It just depends on which direction you want to go in with that, really. As we move into the week, we continue that focus on your day-to-day schedule. What's interesting, actually, is that very recently I noticed that I'm busy all the time. I spend most of my time saying, I'm sorry, I'm just so busy. I got all this stuff to do. It's true. I am so busy all the time, but I don't feel really productive most of the time. And so I have been looking into different apps to help organize and maximize my time, to get the most out of my time, to get the most things done in a day without necessarily completely wearing me out. And I feel like recently, with all the talk of self-care, I think is part of what's behind this, with all the talk about self-care, with all the talk about mindset and energy and all of those things. I think a lot of people reserve a lot more energy than they used to. And when in the world that we live in currently right now, the only problem with that really is the fact that our time isn't being taken up. And I really do feel that it is influencing the amount of mental health issues that seem to be running rampant recently in the last 20 years or so. Not because they went undiagnosed the whole time previously, that is a part of it, but also because our function is different. We went from a society that has to work constantly to a society that has a lot more entertainment at their disposal. And so now we're really looking at whether or not we're making good choices with our time, or are we wasting that time? I am a big fan of wasting time every now and then. I think we need to waste a certain amount of time because it provides that balance between working and resting. That is important. We just can't get into the habit of having a daily conversation with ourselves about, I'm going to put this off until tomorrow. I'm going to put this off until tomorrow. I'm going to put this off until tomorrow. 2 weeks have gone by and you still haven't done it yet. And that's really what we're looking at in terms of focus on your day-to-day schedule. It's the end of the year. You're looking at your goals for next year. My goal for next year is to be more productive. Same level of busy, but more productive with that. And it's not a bad goal. You guys can use it if you want. It's not a bad goal. But you have to look at where you are and decide, is this where you want to be financially, security wise, home wise, career wise? Is this where you want to be? If the answer is no, it's up to you to maximize that time as much as you possibly can. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do consider sending a tip or a donation through my Ko-fi link, which is there in the description of the video. I'd really appreciate that. I really appreciate the support, you guys. You have been amazing, really. And I am very, very blessed. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thank you so much for watching. And I will see you next week. And in the meantime, you guys, make it a productive week. Just kick some butt. For me, for yourselves, for the world, for whatever reason you want to do it. I'll see you guys next week.